Good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here. As Adrian noted, on November 24th, 1989, the House of Commons passed an all-party bill to eliminate child poverty by the year 2000. What we observe since that date in Canada, at which time the rates for child poverty were 15.8% of all children living in poverty, is an increase to what we see in 2012 of having 19.1% of all children living in poverty in Canada. BC has not fared any better. In the BC context, in 1989, there was 15.5% of all children living in poverty. And in the year 2012, we see an increase to 20.6% of all children living in poverty. This means that nearly 1 in 5 children lives in poverty in BC. And compared to the national average, BC is higher. In absolute terms, 169,420 children in British Columbia live in poverty. That's enough to fill the stadium that the Canucks play in 9 times over. Compared to other provinces, BC ranks 5th overall, with Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Nova Scotia, and New Brunswick having higher child poverty rates than British Columbia. In BC, all family types are affected by poverty, but some family types are disproportionately affected by poverty. Being a lone parent means having a higher chance of living in poverty. Based on our analysis of poverty data in 2012, we observe that 49.5% of lone parents live below the poverty line. On the other hand, 13.2% of couple families live below the poverty line. Now, when we talk about the poverty line, we're talking about a particular measure of low income produced by Statistics Canada. And in the case of all the measures that I'll be referring to in the next few minutes, we're using what's called the low income measure. And there's details about that measure in the report card itself. It's also important to note that the measure that we're using, the low income measure, is a different measure of low income that was used in previous report cards, and therefore comparisons to previous years is not possible. One of the fact sheets that we've reported on refers to the depth of poverty. And when we talk about the depth of poverty, we're talking about how far below the poverty line families with children are living. If we take, for example, a couple family with 2 kids, the poverty line for that family type is $33,936 per year. So in other words, any couple family with 2 kids reporting an income below that amount would be said to be living below the poverty line. Now, of all those couple families who report incomes below the poverty line, we observe that the median income for those family types is $23,440. What this means is that couple families with 2 children live $10,496 below the poverty line. For many families living in poverty, a main source of income is income assistance. And BC's policy on income assistance forces all families who are in receipt of the benefit to live well below the poverty line. We take, for example, a lone parent with 1 child. The total amount of income assistance they would receive on an annual basis would be $5,548 below the poverty line. We take a couple family with 2 children, the total amount of income assistance they would receive on an annual basis would be $10,525 below the poverty line. This year's report card includes a new feature. There's some maps in there, and those maps present the prevalence of child poverty by regional district across British Columbia. British Columbia has 29 regional districts in all. We observe that 24 of the 29 have at least 1,000 children living in poverty in them. The 3 regional districts with the highest child poverty rates in BC are the Central Coast Regional District, Skeena Queen Charlotte Regional District, and the Mount Waddington Regional District. Regional districts with the lowest child poverty rates are Peace River Regional District, East Kootenay Regional District, and Capital Region District. Here in Metro Vancouver, we also observe troublingly high rates of child poverty. One of the fact sheets has a map of Metro Vancouver, and that map represents 455 census tracts. Census tracts are small areas of geography that Statistics Canada used to assemble information about that area. In a way, they're kind of like neighborhoods. What we can observe by looking at all the census tracts across all of the municipalities in Metro Vancouver is that 363 of the 455 census tracts in Metro Vancouver had at least 100 poor children living in them. It's a full 80% of all Metro Vancouver neighborhoods have at least 100 kids living there. Census tracts reporting the highest rates of child poverty, or the neighborhoods that hold these census tracts, are the downtown east side, Chinatown, and Strathcona. And the neighborhoods that have census tracts with the lowest child poverty rates are Tsawwassen, Lynn Valley, and Deep Cove. All the information that's been presented here, sobering and unsettling, and it begs questions about why is it this way, who's responsible, and what can be done. And we have the benefit today of getting a chance to hear from some very smart, passionate advocates about pathways moving forward that would see reductions in child poverty in British Columbia. And I'll let them fill in some of those details, provide some stories that further illustrate the need for action. But in closing, I'd just like to remark on the fact that a very practical first step towards the reduction in child poverty is the development and implementation of a provincial poverty reduction plan that has clear targets and timelines.